This is the only Bambu Studio tutorial that you're going to need. This is aimed at total beginners at learning how to use Bambu Studio and getting started with 3D printing on your Bambu Lab machines. Without further ado, my name's Chris. I'm a total nerd when it comes to 3D printing, but I'm going to do my best to make this as simple as possible. So let's get started. All right, so step number one, what we want to do is open up your web browser and go to Google. What we need to do is download Bambu Studio. All you need to do is search for Bambu Studio, and then a link should pop up. Just make sure it's from bambulab.com. Click on this link here, and then it's going to have you choose, do you have a Windows computer or a Bambu or a Macintosh computer? All you do is click on it, it's going to download, and then it's going to walk you through step by step on how to install the software, essentially. I just want to have that covered, that you actually know how to download it. I know it's pretty simple, but step number two, what we want to do here is we want to click on the Bambu Studio app icon right here. Get used to seeing this. This is what it looks like. So just double click on that, and it should open for you. I will advise that if you've never opened Bambu Studio before, chances are it's going to need to download and do like some updates and so forth. So that's probably going to take a couple of minutes. So this is what the dashboard looks like in Bambu Studio, right? And I know it's overwhelming at first, but let's just explain this because I'm going to break this down so that an ultimate beginner can do everything in here, right? So these tabs at the top are essentially all the tabs that we're going to be using in the actual like slicing of the files. And I know if you click on them, it's a bit overwhelming, but just, make sure on your device tab that the first thing you want to do is make sure that your 3D printer is connected. So click on this button right here in the upper left-hand corner. You can see that I'm connected to my A1. I named it the A1 Powerhouse because that's what it is. And just click on it and make sure it's connected. If it's not, I would highly suggest go down to your 3D printer and just make sure you're connected to your Wi-Fi and everything is looking good on that behalf. So then what we want to do is we want to go back to the home button back here. So once you click back to this home tab, what you want to do is look at these tabs here. So our library here is the things that we have just opened, and right above that it should say your username. If you haven't created an account with Bambu's Labs, I would highly advise doing that. My name is 3D Print Dude, by the way. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And then your recently opened is obviously things that you've recently opened. And then your online models, which is next. This is really important because this is super crucial to know, especially as a beginner. So this is essentially the marketplace and archive of 3D prints that Bambu Labs has, also known as MakerWorld. You can also, what's really nice about it, when you visit all these pages and listings within the Bambu Studio app here, or the software, is that you can directly open it into the studio itself, inside the slicer. Versus if you were to go to the website, like if I open the Chrome browser and open MakerWorld, you can still do that and browse it like that. But what sucks is you actually have to download the file essentially in the web browser here, and then you'll have to upload it into Bambu Lab Studio. It's just a lot easier to search things in here, and you can just if we click on this cat, for example, I can open this, I select my 3D printer that I have up here, and then you just click open, download and open, and it directly opens it. So that's what I'd advise doing it this way because it's the easiest, especially if you're somewhat of a beginner. So this next tab is Maker Lab. This is essentially a bunch of cool tools that Bambu Lab has given us, and don't underlook these because these things are really cool. I initially blew past them and I was just like, whatever, dude. But I come back to these all the time, and you can actually kind of hijack these tools to do a lot of other things. This image to keychain feature is amazing. This model maker is crazy. The desk organizer, the puzzle maker, you can make your own vases, make your own signs. These tools are actually super convenient and helpful. But let's move on to the next step of actually 3D printing your first model. So what I'd advise you to do is go on over to the online models tab and then just search something that you're going to like. I would advise, if you're somewhat new to this, I would advise to 3D print something kind of really simple. You know what I mean? A lot of times people will print a benchy or just kind of ease into it with single color prints. If sometimes you can open a 3D printed file and it'll open on multiple plates, and it quickly becomes extremely overwhelming. So what I would do is kind of just search for a benchy or just something easy. It doesn't have to be a benchy. What I tend to do is just something really easy, right? So let's find a benchy here. This one looks pretty simple. And when you click on something, the listing kind of pops up and you can actually choose different settings. Like this is a, you can choose like a single color. You can choose how long you want it to be with like the percentage of infill. You can look at different pictures. Some people do multicolors. There's also comments in here. Sometimes there's videos. This is where you can kind of search and just browse all the information on it. But once you're certain that that's your 3D print file that you want to print on your printer, choose your printer up here before doing it. Like for example, I have the A1 connected right now. So I would click on A1, I would highlight that, and then I would click on download and open. And then it's going to automatically open into your slicer, which is extremely helpful. And I know when you start looking at things, it becomes extremely overwhelming, but guys, I'm gonna make this simple, and it's we're just gonna keep this simple for you to understand, right? So if we start over here on the left-hand side, this is the Prepare tab, and as we get farther along the process, what will happen is we'll prepare everything, right, in Bambu Studio here, and then we'll move on to the Preview tab, and then we'll go to the Device tab and actually print it. So there's kind of just 3 tabs, even though this looks crazy. It probably feels like you're a CNC machinist designing crazy stuff. I get it, but guys, just kind of get past that, because as long as we keep this really simple, you can just, I could print this within like probably 4 or 5 clicks. It's just kind of overwhelming at first. So what we need to first do is make sure that we have our 3D printer connected. So make sure you're in the Prepare tab, and then you have the correct 3D printer that you want to print on, right? And you need to have that connected. If you're having issues on here, maybe left click on the scroll down here and make sure you choose it. You can also go over to the Device tab, like I talked about before, and then you can make sure that you're connected to your 3D printer. And if you don't, you need to go down into your 3D printer and connect to the Wi-Fi and name it and kind of like set all that up. So go back to the Prepare tab. You need to make sure you have the right 3D printer, and then make sure you have the right plate, the build plate. And as long as you have the correct 3D printer up here, everything else should automatically fill. Bambu Lab is really good at just kind of like making this super simple. So your printer should come, it should be on the textured PEI plate. If not, you can choose something different. The diameter here is the nozzle size, so just keep that. Most Bambu Lab printers are 0.4. And then the flow, keep at standard. I have videos, like in-depth videos, where we kind of geek out and change all these settings, but now that you're getting started with Bambu Studio, keep all of this stuff as simple as you can, because especially once you get into, like, get some prints under your belt, right? And then what you need to do here is probably not touch any of this stuff here. Down here where it's layer heights, initial, like the line width, all of this stuff I wouldn't touch, because Bambu Lab is really good at automatically setting all this. But right here where it says filaments, this is where you're going to need to kind of select what kind of filament you're using. So just click on the scroll down here, and what you can do here is down here where it says presets, there's kind of different settings. You can add and remove filaments if you want, but chances are you're probably printing with a generic PLA to start. Maybe your machine came with PLA. PLA is the most basic of them all, or maybe it's PETG, or it's Bambu. You could choose PLA Basic. Essentially choose your filament style right here, the type, right? I always do just generic PLA if I'm just printing in PLA, because if we're being honest, all the brands are kind of the same, and generic is just kind of like a fail-safe for choosing the right PLA, right? But if it's Bambu, you can choose that as well. So now, what I would advise you to do is sort of not touch any of this stuff. This is kind of the more advanced settings. Bambu Lab is really good at, whoever created the file kind of changed all these settings and has them perfected. What I have more in-depth videos that go through all of stuff and kind of like change the settings and the strengths and the speeds, but I would not like mess with it. All right, so let's move on to the actual file itself. So what you can do here, this is your build plate. So if you left click and hold it, you can actually move this around. And I'll repeat that, left click and drop and drag, you can kind of like see the bottom of it, the top of it. And then if you right click and hold, you can move this and you can see different, like say if you wanted to zoom in, you can also zoom in if you scroll your mouse. You can get like a really good, again, right click, and then you can drag and move it, and we'll get a good look at this, right? You can also zoom out. So say if we wanted to change the sizing of this, all you'd have to do is left click on the file itself, and then you can hold left click and drop and drag and move it wherever you want on the build plate. Some people prefer it in a certain spot. If it's just like if it's one thing here, not a big deal about the location of it, right? So then you can left click, drop and drag it wherever you want. I tend to just put it in the middle. I don't know. People have their preferences. So then if we go over here, there's a bunch of other settings up here that we can mess with, right? And again, it can get confusing, but you'll quickly learn all of this stuff. So if I wanted to increase the size, this is probably the most widely asked question I get. This button right here is actually scale, which is you're gonna scale it. So make sure your item is left clicked and highlighted and then click on this scale button. There's a couple different ways we can do this. You can scale it based on like the coordinates. You can keep it uniform as well. I highly advise if you're new to this to just keep everything uniform, because you have to remember, like say if you change the scaling of the width and not the height, like you're gonna just lose like the symmetricalness of it. Does that make sense? I'm not good at explaining things, but do my best here. So left click, go on the scale. What I advise you to do is just click on this X coordinate. Say if you wanted to just increase the sizing, think of it as a scaling, if you want to do it in millimeters, you can either do it in a percentage of scaling or millimeters. So if I did like 100 millimeters and then clicked enter, notice how the scaling of it like stay the same. Say if I were to undo this uniform scale and I did 150, see how it got all weird and funky on us? And by the way, if you mess anything up and you want to undo it, there's an undo button up here on the left hand side. See that? So I'm going to undo that and I'm going to click the uniform scale again. And then that is essentially the sizing of it. So you could print a big benchy, a small benchy, and sometimes you'll open a file and there'll be like multiple plates happening here and it can quickly become overwhelming. And that's essentially where like sometimes the slicer will do like different plates and you print one at a time. I could probably show you an example of this quick. Well, actually, you know what? That's probably doesn't pertain to us, so we're just going to move on past that. So say, a lot of these settings up here actually do really kind of cool things. So, and to use these settings up here, what we need to do is left click and highlight it. And you'll notice a lot of this stuff, like this will change the positioning. Like say if I wanted to lift it up or down. And again, you'll get better with, using this stuff as you 3D print a little bit more. So if I click back, forward, and again, just click undo if you want to undo anything. You can change the orientation. So this is auto orientate. A lot of times people will click that because you should let it auto orientate itself so that it can, because the slicer is really good at what it does on figuring things out. But say if I wanted to orientate it or like rotate it like at a different degree, say if I wanted to do it like that, it could still work, but it's not going to print as good because the bottom is flat, as you can see. And if I do it like that, if we click on the preview tab here, it's not going to, it's going to need supports and stuff. And we'll get to that in a second here. So if I click prepare, click back, and again, you'll just kind of have to learn what a lot of these tools do. This is adding objects. Say if I wanted to add something, actually this is adding other files. Say if I wanted to 3D print another one, I could just add another file and it just added on top of it. You can add multiple files, so that's very helpful to know as well. And again, you can, a lot of times people are printing like cool keychains that a lot of people, like say if you're printing things that a lot of people need, like if you're selling things, what you could also do is left click on it, you could right click, and then you could do a bunch of settings as well. You could do fill bed with copies, see that? That'll do as many as you can, but I don't know, there's so many settings in this tool that it's insane. So that's how you'd add multiple parts there. Then this one here, and again, if you want to get rid of a file at any point, all you have to do is left click on it, right click, and then just hit delete, and it will delete itself. And I understand if you're a total beginner, some of this stuff might be going way over your head, but I just kind of want to give an in-depth tutorial on how to use Bambu Studio so that you can kind of get a gist of learning this stuff, right? So again, this is the rotate option. I can rotate different things. We can spin it. We can move it up. There's all kinds of cool things we could do. You can change angles. Essentially, this is an all-in-one. You can customize almost anything just using all of these tools. Here's a cool one as well. This is the paint feature where you can change different colors of like you could have this print in different colors by doing the paint feature. I have a whole video as well of that. So again, some of these tutorials are more in depth in itself. You know, like a 5-minute video is necessary just for this. We could also add text. Say if I wanted to add text to like the side of the boat here or the top of it. Say it says text right there. I could put my initials. A lot of times it's really cool for kids to have like their initials on things, and it's really quick and easy to do, honestly. So then now there's text on here. See this? This is really cool, and kids love this stuff. They eat it up. Like say if it has their name on it, they're like, woo! Like it's crazy. I know. So that's how you add text. That feature is really easy as well. I have a quick guide on how to do that. So just check out the channel for like in-depth tutorials on each individual one of these settings. And there's a support. There's also a custom support. And there's a bunch of other things. What you can also do is use this measuring tool to kind of get an idea of like what the sizing is of things. Say if I wanted to know like the depth between here to here or something like that, you could use the measure tool. And if you click on it, it's going to show you the measurement of that. That's really actually helpful, like when you're doing custom parts and stuff and getting things to fit in a certain area. But if you're a total beginner, it's probably going way over your head. You know what I mean? So let's just blow past all this stuff, because those are most of the settings, and chances are you don't need to know this. You're probably waiting to move on to print your file, right? All right, so what you want to do is make sure your sizing and the location is good, right? One other thing to know is that if your file needs supports, I would advise clicking on it. And what you need to do is make sure you're on this Prepare tab here in Bambu Studio. Go over to Support, see this button right here, and you need to enable supports. Because like, I'll show you an example. So once your supports are enabled, there's different types of supports as well. So there's a tree support, and then there's a normal support. Most people use the tree because it's like the easiest to break away and it's the smallest. So I'll show you an example. So if I rotate this and rotate it like this, and then I click on the preview tab, when you click on the preview tab, what it does is it actually kind of, it uses its software mechanism to create the best file, like the best settings for it to print. So as you can see here, I'm going to go back and change the color of this. By the way, when you choose your filaments, you can choose the color of it. It's just kind of hard to see. So if we go back here, and as you can see here, this has put supports in there. And the reason you need supports on your 3D printed files is because when there's overhang, the printer can't print the material. See how it has supports there? And then if I switched it to manual supports, or the normal ones, and then click on preview, when you click on preview, it takes a second to kind of do it. See how this is, there's the difference here? You're gonna have to mess around with what type of support works best for you. Most people find that tree supports are like, they're less intrusive on the file itself, and it's really easy to kind of break away. So I tend to always use tree supports. And for this file, we don't actually need it because there's not going to be any. So if I click on auto orientate right here, it's going to go back to normal. And that's because the bottom is flat. So if I click on preview now, you're going to see that I don't even need any supports. And a lot of the files, well, actually, it'll put them in sometimes. But most of the time for benchies, you don't actually need them. So if I click on enable, turn this off, go back to prepare. Again, if you're making any changes, you're going to have to click on the prepare tab, and it's going to like, it's going to go back and turn everything off. But once you click on preview again, the tool kind of creates a file and kind of like, what's the word, processes it so that it gets it ready to print. So now it has no supports. I've printed this 100 times, and I know that this file doesn't need supports, but it could, it could help. If we go back to prepare and then we turn them on, then click preview, it's going to put a couple in there. And you're just gonna have to mess around with this. Sometimes you need support, sometimes you don't. Most of the time you do. And what's cool is these all like, these break off pretty easily, honestly. So now that we're in the preview tab, let's talk about this, right? Because these are essentially a bunch of this is showing you what it's going to print like, right? If we look at this prompt up here, it's gonna give you a bunch of information. It's gonna tell you what filament, it's gonna tell you how much filament it's using. So it's 14.44. It's going to use that much material, and it tells you the cost. It has a rough cost estimate, and then for a time, it gives you the time estimation. It says it's total 2 hours and 16 minutes long. So this is really good to know. Sometimes before you go and print, you'll be like, oh, it says 14 hours. I'm going to back out of this. This happens all the time with me. My daughter will be 3D printing something, and she'll be like, I want that. And then I'll look at it, and it's 22 hours, and she'll be like, nope, I don't want it. And again, what kind of breaks down, like from what takes a long time is a lot of the settings. How slow is the 3D printer going? There's tons and tons of settings, and it kind of breaks down to how they made the file. All right, so we're getting closer to sending this 3D print to the actual Bambu Lab 3D printer, right? So, and now what you want to do here is you want to make sure you have the correct, you want to double check and make sure you have the right printer, the right texture plate. Chances are it's a PEI plate because that's what most of them come with. Then you need to make sure you have the right filament and the right color. So what you want to do is click on the device tab, and then your 3D printer, if you have an AMS, if you click on the device tab, make sure you have the correct one selected right here to the correct 3D printer. Then what you want to do is choose the colors. And what you can do here is you can click on here, say if this isn't black on your AMS, change the colors. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll take my camera on my phone and I'll take a picture of my AMS, and then I'll bring it back here to Bambu Studio so that I remember what colors are where. And then what you do is you click on these and you modify them. Say if this isn't black and it's like turquoise, you click on turquoise and click on confirm. And then that is going to change it. And what you want to do here is go back to the prepare tab and make sure you have that correct AMS color chosen. So if you click here, the first colors that show up here on the drop down are the ones from your AMS. See the correlation here? These are the colors first on the filament selection. Then if you go to your device, those are the same ones on your AMS. Hopefully that makes sense. But it's only going to have the colors correct if you edit them correctly. Then you go back to the prepare tab, choose which color you want. Say if I want to do that turquoise, and then I need to make sure that I have that correct color on the roll here on the AMS, and it's front facing like that. I'm going over this a lot because I get like a million questions on this, so I apologize. Then go back to the prepare, double check everything, click on the preview tab, take a look at the time, how much filament, everything looks good. If the supports look good for you, that's good. Everything looks good, right? It takes some kind of just double check everything. That's what I'm saying here. Then when you're ready, all you do here, by the way, if you want to take a look at like what it looks like as it's 3D printing, there's a little setting right here. You can actually left click on here and you can scroll down. Sometimes I like to take a look at this. I'll zoom in and then I'll take a look at it like this. And what you can actually do, a cool little setting here quick, you can actually change the color of this. If you right click on here, you go to jump to layer. Actually, you know what? I'm not even going to get into this because I have videos on this and I don't want to confuse you guys. But you can see this is the layer. This is what it looks like in the layerage of it prints in. So that gives you an idea what it looks like. When you're ready to send it to your printer, you go up over here into the total right-hand corner where it says print plate, right? You click on that. It says my printer's busy because I'm printing something. I'm always printing stuff. Just make sure you have the correct printer. It's going to ask you again, are you sure you want to do it on this color? Or not this color, this printer, this 3D printer, the A1, then the type of plate. Then it tells you the filaments, and then you just click send, and it's going to send to your 3D printer. So this is the only Bambu Studio tutorial that you're going to need. This is the ultimate beginner tutorial, like how to learn how to use Bambu Studio and how to 3D print using your Bambu Lab 3D printers using the Bambu Lab slicer. Again, I did my best here. I have like a bunch of these, and Bambu Lab is constantly updating Bambu Studio. So I kind of have to do these like once every 6 months. A lot's been changing in the scene. Please consider subscribing and hit me up in the comments down below. Are you needing any tutorials? That's kind of what this channel is devoted to, is like helping people learn how to do things in the 3D printed space through tutorials. I'm not super creative, so like I just try to help people. Without further ado, this is the best Bambu Studio tutorial on the planet. It's the only one you need to learn how to use it. All right, guys, I'm gonna quit. Yes, I'll see you guys in the next one.